I'm Jessica Layton in New York. It is 2 a.m. here in the East, and we're coming on the air with some breaking news right now. Several people have been injured in New York after an airplane collided with a vehicle on the runway at LaGuardia Airport. The plane was an Air Canada flight, the vehicle a Port Authority fire truck. The airport right now is under a full ground stop as emergency responders swarm that scene, tending to the injured and begin their investigation. Let's bring in NBC News senior producer Jay Blackman. Jay, we know that the Port Authority fire truck was being manned by police officers. 2 are injured with broken limbs. Sources also tell us the pilot and the co-pilot of the plane have been badly injured in this incident. What else can you tell us?
We know that this is an Air Canada regional jet. According to the FAA, it landed at 11:45 this evening, or I guess last night, and collided with that truck on the runway. It appears that if from the video that the nose of the plane is badly damaged. The plane is, as you can see, up on its rear landing gear. The FAA will investigate. Also, the NTSB is expected to launch a team later this morning, as they would in any aviation accident.
We know that there were 76 passengers on board, 4 crew members, and then in addition to those folks who were in the fire truck at the time. You mentioned the NTSB, the FAA. Does Port Authority play a role in the investigation, Jay?
Yes, in any NTSB investigation, there are parties to the investigation. The Port Authority would be a party, as well as Air Canada, the FAA, anybody who can give any information, any investigative information. It'll also be important for investigators to listen to the recordings of the air traffic control tower, what was said when, so they can put together a timeline of exactly what went wrong here.
In a situation like this, Jay, where would those remaining passengers who were on the plane, where would they be right now?
Depending on their status, if they're injured, they would be taken to local hospitals. They'd probably be bussed to the terminal and then taken. Obviously, they're probably very shaken after what occurred tonight at LaGuardia.
Certainly, Jay, seems like a very panicked and chaotic situation. Jay, thank you so much. And now let's go on the phone to NBC News aviation analyst Jeff Guzzetti. Jeff, thanks for joining us. What else can you tell us about this incident, and what are you taking away from the scene as you watch the video?
Good morning, Jessica. Well, it looks like that the visibility is limited. It looks like there's some fog or some rain as you're looking at these pictures. And you can also see that the damage to the nose of the airplane, like Jay Blackman had just explained, it's pretty extensive. It is at the nose of the aircraft, the underside of the nose, and I'm just hoping and praying that no one on board that airplane was killed. But that's quite a lot of damage to the nose of the airplane. But it is underneath the nose, so that structure may have helped people survive in the airplane.
We certainly hope it did. We know that the pilot and the co-pilot, as we said, have been badly injured. They have been taken to the hospital. We're also told, Jeff, that the plane was at the end of landing going about 30 miles per hour when the collision occurred. When we consider that a plane was landing at the same time that a Port Authority fire truck was on that runway, give us a sense of the type of communication breakdown that would have had to happen for this very scary incident to occur.
Well, we just don't know yet what any recording of vehicles trying to cross runways is something that is recorded, and you can bet that the NTSB and the FAA will listen to the recordings. They're going to try to determine if the controller cleared the truck across the runway, and if so, why did he clear him across that runway? Or perhaps they could have told the truck to stop, and the truck driver did not stop. So we'll just have to see exactly what the radio transmissions, the recorded radio transmissions, will show to determine who may be at fault here.
Certainly, this is just in the very infant hours of the investigation, but we do want to mention that there's about 1,200 flights in and out of LaGuardia each day. Several come from Toronto and Montreal. Jeff, as scary as this is, and while this investigation is paramount to ensuring the safety of all passengers, give us a sense of how common a situation like this is, or uncommon, as it were.
Well, it's pretty uncommon. I can't even think of the last time in this country we had a collision on the ground between a jet that was landing and a vehicle. There's been several occurrences involving near misses between one airplane and another, but to actually have a collision between an airplane and a vehicle, a ground vehicle, is pretty unusual, Jessica. And it shouldn't have happened. There are protocols in place, communication protocols, and lights on the truck and lights on the airplane that are all there to prevent these types of occurrences. Very rare.
Jeff Guzzetti, NBC News aviation analyst, thanks so much for joining us. Joining us now on the phone is NBC's Jonathan Dienst. Jonathan, what can you tell us? What are you hearing from your sources?
I can echo much of what Jay has already reported, but we can tell you that there are at least 4 casualties in this collision. 2 of them, the pilot and co-pilot, who we're told are severely injured. We're awaiting an update on their condition. And there is a police sergeant and a police officer who were manning that Port Authority police rescue fire vehicle that went out onto the tail end of the runway there where the collision occurred. Those 2 officers, amid the collision, were hurled from the vehicle and landed, and we were told they suffered broken bones, including arms and ribs, but that they are expected that they're in stable condition and expected to be okay in the long term. We are, again, awaiting an update on the pilot and co-pilot. And, again, we are looking at a plane that had a crew of 4, and I stress all of this information is preliminary, a crew of 4 and 76 passengers. From 2 sources familiar with the matter, there are no other significant injuries that they know of at this time. But obviously, with that plane needing to be evacuated, I expect to hear reports of bumps and bruises. But the best preliminary information we have is concern for the pilot and co-pilot. And that seems to be the biggest concern at this hour. And also for the 2 officers who were hurled from that vehicle after the collision, and they are now hospitalized with broken bones, including limbs and ribs. Lastly, we will say that the plane was going about 30 miles per hour, so it was at the tail end of its landing on the runway. This was not a taxi wing. The question is why? Or did the air traffic control give clearance to that vehicle? If so, why in this driving rainstorm? How was there this confusion? Did they just go? And their conditions, and of course the 2 officers.
All right, Jonathan Dienst, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. That concludes this NBC News special report. I'm Jessica Layton. We have more coverage ahead on your local NBC station, our streaming channel, NBC News Now, and online at NBCnews.com. And, of course, much more this morning on Early Today and The Today Show. I'm Jessica Layton. Thanks for watching.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.